When we run our trainings, we have our 5-part core certification for future advocates who want to get out there and change the world they're in. And this is part of it. Adam, one of the things that I think brought to this was we have a lot of folks in this world who see something important to them and want to actually make a difference, but then go to their friends and family. They go to hop out on social media and say, this is important. We need to go make a difference. And then nobody responds to them and no one's motivated. No one wants to go out and join them on this mission. And they just don't understand why.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with social media culture now. It's like you can broadcast everything you're saying out to a wide audience and people will like it and you feel like you're getting that immediate response. So then naturally we're inclined to think, well, hey, if I see a bunch of people that are fired up on social media complaining about local politics, maybe something happening with the city council, immediately I'm like, oh, well, all these people are going to go and knock doors and support my cause and support my side. But that's not always the case, especially in a cyber world. People still crave real relationships. They still crave getting to know one another. And that's what ultimately leads to getting things done.
Right. So we built, now this is, boy, years ago now, we actually built a program on how to move people through from just meeting them, just connecting, to becoming then motivated to join in your cause. And this is something we've updated throughout the years, but this has been a core training, and this is something that people have taken out and taken from this. We don't have a title for it, but what we said, we need to come up with a snazzy title for this. So we need to come up with something. But here's how it works: relationships build trust. If there's trust, then people are willing to be educated.
Mhm.
And when people are educated, they are motivated. So you can't just start at this level of motivation with telling people, I'm motivated, I'm personally involved and invested. I need you to be involved and invested too. That's not how this, unfortunately, for lack of a better word, not how it works.
No, and I think that especially in politics today, when you see folks saying, "Oh, well, everyone's frustrated about the economy, so that means that they are naturally going to vote for a candidate that's more for the economy." That's not always the case.
Right.
Or they're frustrated with what's going on in their school board election, and then the election, the election rolls around, but no one votes. And why is that? It's because there isn't that. I mean, for my snazzy title, I'd almost call it the roadmap to mobilization. And just
Ooh.
like you said, it starts with, seeing that someone is frustrated about an issue, seeing that someone cares about an issue, meeting with them, building that relationship, building that trust to then where you can be the trusted voice whenever it comes to stuff. I mean, I know for me personally, I have a lot of members of my church and they reach out to me almost every election day or the few days leading up to it and they say, hey, I noticed we have an election, who do we vote for? And that didn't happen overnight. I didn't just show up on the scene one day and everyone's like, oh yeah, well, we know Adam clearly is the expert in all local elections. But what happened was years of getting to know folks and understanding their values, and they got to understand my values, so that way we had that trust. They trusted that my values and my principles aligned with theirs, and so then that way, when there's something that they're unsure of, they trust me enough to take my advice on the candidates, the issues, the bond issue, the proposition, whatever it may be. But that didn't happen overnight. And I think a lot of times, especially in politics today, we think, oh, well, people are frustrated about this issue. They're going to mobilize on that issue. And that's not the case at all.
Right. That's not how it works. You don't just jump straight from first hearing about a topic. I'm even hesitant to say you don't jump from learning about a topic to activating and mobilizing. You don't start from hearing it even.
Right.
And I love that example that you use because I see that in my life as well. But it isn't just, I didn't walk in one day and said, hi, I'm Jason. I'm smart. Right. Let's dive right in relationships. First off, we want to build a relationship. I'm always someone who I'm a one-on-one kind of person. If you want to connect with somebody, you want to meet with them, find out what matters to them, you go grab a coffee with them, you go meet them.
Yeah. I mean,
I
for
have my
me
GLA mug.
personally, I love the coffee mug. I've got mine back
Mhm.
home. I drink my coffee out of it almost every other day. But,
No.
for me, part of what got me in was, I really got to know my pastor really well.
Mhm.
And that was just one relationship at the church. I know that he works on his messages on Thursdays at coffee shops. kind of in the area. He likes to try out new coffee shops. I learned that about him. And then I would text him or call him or see him Sunday and say, hey, what coffee shop are you going to? Would you mind getting there 30 minutes early than you normally do and grabbing a coffee I'll buy? And I want to talk to you about, kind of some of the stuff that I see happening in our community and what are the concerns that you have. And that's how the relationship, began to get built. It wasn't that, I just walked up to him and I was like, I'm the political expert of the church. I didn't know if you knew this or not. I'm the guy that you got to come to on all this stuff. But it
Hmm.
started with, I would run into him at, coffee shop down the road, or I'd say, hey, let's meet up at this one and talk. And I met him where he was. I went to a place that he liked to go to. It wasn't out of his way to build that relationship and gain ultimately the trust there.
Yeah, I had something similar that I was the one that was brought into that. I'm going to sound a little egotistical here. I apologize for the lack of humility. But I did a lot of campaign tech work. So I did a lot of that grassroots directing, connecting people, building the walk lists, understanding the database. And I had a candidate come to me and say, I want this person on my team. I got recommended by some other folks. So she said, I will be in your area on these next couple days. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? A couple really nice coffee shops nearby. I said, yeah, I like this one. So we met up, we sat down, and she didn't start with, here's my list of positions. She didn't start with, here's what I need from you. She started with, here's why I'm running. Here's my connection to the community. Here's why I think our communities are hurting.
Hmm.
And now, finally, here is what I plan to do to fix it. And I need your help.
Yeah.
So she nailed that first meeting. I mean, I was in. I was totally invested. She rocked it. And this is another training we talk about, was starting with your why.
Yeah.
So she started with why she's here and why this is important to her. And then she drew me in and was like, this is why it's important to everybody. She knew you're on. She said, Jason, I know you're on the fire department. You do a lot of community service. You've lived in the area your entire life. This is why I need your expertise. And it worked. She effectively built that relationship really quickly. And I will say she is still my most trusted politician on the entire planet. So she was able to effectively build that trust because we had that relationship. And, she made decisions that I didn't necessarily agree with at first. In political campaigns, I'm not the most, I would say, risk person. I have a little risk averse,
Yeah.
but I trusted her and I truly trust her. And so I was willing to jump on that with her. So yeah, relationships build trust.
Yeah. I mean, and even in the field, I've seen this, we've had success with this all over the place. I was in um, Ohio doing a how to run for school board training. And, the one of the many trainings that we offer, and the candidates that were in the room that were working on it, one of them was talking about why he was running for office, and it was kind of this wild thing, and it didn't really connect with a lot of people. I said, you need to connect that, because that's what's going to build the relationships, that's what's going to build the trust. If you go out as a one issue candidate, because you're running on one thing, well, what happens if tomorrow that gets fixed? And he was like, well, I don't know. I said, if the school board got together tomorrow and fixed that issue, what are you running on? He's like, I don't know. And I said, why are you running, and how can we relate that? And I went back a few months later, and he's like, you were so right on that. I brought my why as, I'm trying to be a voice for parents. And so then I started building relationships with parents, and I started, as I was knocking doors and talking to them, asking them about, what it's like being a parent. What are your concerns? He goes, that's what ultimately led to me getting a relationship with all these people. And then they trusted me. And then, as you move down this, the pathway, the roadmap to mobilization, he goes, then I was able to motivate them to actually vote for me and actually help me start knocking doors. So it's a tried and true process.
Right. And I mean, we forget this part on occasion, and it feels like we can jump straight into educating people, right? We can jump straight into, here is the issue, here's the problem, here's what I want. And we can't. We have to build that trust. There's a great quote. You're gonna have to forgive me. I forget who said it, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So that matters. So now we have this relationship built with folks, and these relationships build upon themselves. You know, that first cup of coffee with me, that took a lot of time, that took a lot of effort, but by the time she had to go around and have coffee with everybody else in the community, I had already said, you need to see this candidate. She is amazing. She is wonderful. And after 3 or 4 of us, then we said, we're going to have a house party and she's going to be there. So we're going to bring 10 people in and 15 people in that now the 3 of us have already vouched. We've already built these relationships years ago. These are decades long relationships. So now we're just amplifying that. Relationships build trust, relationships build trust, relationships build trust. And it just creates this cycle where 3 people can bring in 10 people, 10 people can bring in 50 people. And it just escalates so much and so much because she took the time to get to know 1 or 2 people. And you took the time to get to know 1 or 2 people. You took the time to get to know the pastor. You took the time to get to know a few key people. And they said, oh, wait, yeah, this Adam guy, he actually like knows stuff. He's a good dude. So let's keep talking.
Well, and then whenever people would go to, you know, the pastor or someone in the church that was, considered a leader and say, hey, I've just been, I've been really frustrated and, I know there's an election coming up. I just don't know what to do. You're someone I trust. And he goes, well, here's someone that I trust. I trust Adam. I trust that he knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who I'm going to vouch for in this. So, one relationship, and we've been here this week at headquarters doing grassroots orientation training. And, the biggest thing that we try to put in anyone that joins the organization, you got to build relationships. You're in a sales job now. You're not just, a person that's out networking. You got to look at it as we have a product here. That product is freedom, and that product is a better future, and that's a better pathway forward. And we're selling that to people, but they don't buy it, sight unseen, right? And they don't buy it the first time. It takes with all those steps, and as much as our generations today and everything, especially, I joke. I was telling someone yesterday, if there's something that's like $15 or less on Amazon that looks cool, I'm probably buying it. Do no research at all. I mean, I bought like this like
Yep.
tool that like helps you clean out your ears. Dumbest thing I've ever purchased in my life. But I just buy it. And, we think that everyone's impulsive, but whenever it comes to real heavy stuff, I mean, when it comes to actually taking an action and not just clicking your mouse or clicking the keyboard to buy something, it takes people having trust in that person, in that candidate, in you, and then moving on towards educating, motivating, and then mobilizing. I don't have
Yeah.
my cheat sheet right in front of me.
Right? I have my cheat sheet in front of me. That's why I keep looking around everywhere. Uh, and I think the sales technique, I think that is so accurate to everything we're trying to do because we really are. When you're in this position where you're trying to bring people into your cause, you're trying to sell people. You're trying to get them to buy something. The exchange, though, is that you don't want their money. You want their time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, $15 Amazon purchases. I have about a half a dozen lying around just this one room I'm in. But my time is so much more expensive to me. It costs so much more because that's what I'm never getting back.
Right.
Right. This moment can never be replicated. This live stream can never be replicated. This conversation can never be bought back. So I only have so much time. And in my life, let's see. Today, I have 3 kids, wife, volunteer at my church. Hockey season's over, so I don't coach that right now. I coach baseball now for the first time. That's fun. It actually is very awesome, super rewarding. Love it. Um, so there's a lot of trade-offs that I have to make there. So you really have to convince me that if you want me to spend an hour with you on something that's important to you, you have to convince me that your thing is more important than everything else I've already committed to in my life. So that sales aspect of it really is true. You're asking people to sell time. You're selling time and you're trying to make that trade of this can feel intangible better future.
Yeah.
You're connecting them together. And I think that's where the education comes in. because like I just said, we're talking about this intangible future. That's what I see at first. You're
Mhm.
asking me for time for this thing I don't understand, this thing I'm not here, but you've built a relationship, you've built a trust. Now you can tell me about what good looks like, about
Right.
what the future is.
Yeah, and I mean that goes into one of the many things we teach here, and talking about the human action model.
Yeah.
When you look at what gets people to take action, starts with a sense of unease, and then a
Hmm.
vision of a better state, and then a realistic pathway to get there. We were talking yesterday about how this, how all this kind of blends together, circularly, this building relationships, educating, and trust and human action
Hmm.
model. And, you know, not to advertise anyone, but, are you paying too much on your car insurance? Yeah, I am paying too much
I
on
don't
my
know. Am
car
I? Wait,
insurance.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
I
I
think I
might
am,
be.
and well, do you want to say 15% or more? Well, perhaps I do. Well, you should probably call the insurance company with the gecko as their mascot.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just perfect example of it.
And they recognize your time, 15 minutes. You don't have a
15.
lot of time. If you got a little bit of time, we can save
Hmm.
you. And
Yep.
I think that's one of the biggest things, like you were talking about time. People value that, especially in such a
Hmm.
fast-paced world where I feel like I'm getting calendar invites every minute of the day.
Yep.
My schedule is constantly stacked up between travel. I've got a young one back at home, and balancing
Hmm.
all that. And so, if someone actually comes to me and they're like, "Hey, Adam, I want to talk to you about what I'm working on," it's like, well, it better be good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're busy. I know I frequently lean in probably too much on the dadisms and probably the dad jokes, and not everybody's at that space, and I want to recognize that. But yeah, no matter where you are in your life, society today is busy, and there's
Hmm.
a lot going on. Like I have friends that don't have any kids and are unmarried, and I think they're busier than me because well, they want kids and want to and want to be married, so that takes a lot of time to figure that out.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, we are a busy society. So to be able to buy that time. So let's talk more about education and
Okay.
being willing to be educated on it because we built this trust. And this is one that always, whenever I'm at a training doing this one, it's that trust to education bridge that I think a lot of people always seem to get stuck on. So this may be me. So I should probably just hand the mic over to you and mute myself because there's this great saying that as far as I'm concerned, the problem is me. So if I always have in classes struggling people bridging that trust to education, well, maybe I'm just teaching it wrong. So, Adam, pretend like I just asked you a question.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that bridge between, trusting someone and then educating them, it starts with, opportunities. I'm sure there's a lot of people that trust me in general, but I can't be willing just to force information down their throats, which I think a lot of people think educating is. It's like, oh, you trust me? Well, let me tell you about everything that's going on in the world. Let me just unload everything. But really, when people want to be educated, they want both sides of the story. They want, me to give background to the information. They want me to give, the pushbacks that I have. And I think one of the best ways that I educate people is by saying, here's my point of view on it, but there are other people in town that think this. So,
Mhm.
for example, we had an issue in Oklahoma City, and it was to build a new arena, and I knew my position on it from day one. And I had a lot of people that came to me and they said, Adam, we trust you on this. We know your position, but what's the pushback? What's the other side saying? Why would this
Mhm.
be a bad thing or a good thing? Or tell us your thought and tell us the other side's thought. And I was like, well, for me, it unlocks this, it does this, but absolutely, I can see where people might get stuck on this. And maybe that's something that you're stuck on. And when you educate someone, it's also recognizing, the hurdles that they may be facing in this, recognizing where they're
Mhm.
coming from because you built that relationship, you know so much about them. It's like I can educate them based off of that. I also know them well enough so I'm not going to talk over their head. I'm not
Right.
going to, make them feel like a child because I have that relationship and because we have that trust. I'm able to educate them on the level that they're at. Talk to them like they're a real person. I think a lot of times When people come to us about an issue, we like to, well, let me give you the grandeur, version of everything, and why my position's so right. But I think a humility goes a long way. Talking about adult learning theory, these aren't kids in classrooms. They're not just absorbing information. They want the information to then make the decision for themselves. That's critical thinking, and that's the best way to educate people. It's not just here's my thoughts and here's why I'm right. It's about connecting them from where they're at, giving them the information, whether it's good or bad, and then allowing them to make the decision for themselves. And hopefully, if you've built that trust and you build that relationship, then they're going to take that information, they're going to see it from your point of view because you've connected on principles. Just like I said in the beginning, one of the first things that I talked about whenever I was building relationships was what are the values that we share and what are the principles we share. And so then whenever I was educating them, I was able to connect those principles that we share back to my point of view. And so maybe they didn't agree with me in the beginning, but now they're like, no, I can see how that value or that principle is applied in this situation. I'm on board with you now.
So I have about 8 things that I wrote down that I want to drive into that I just want to deep dive on. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to throw out a whole bunch of them. But first of all, love the steel manning argument. This is one of my favorite things, in which Steelman, when you look at your opposition's argument in the strongest possible light, you say, okay, I believe they're acting on good faith. I believe they have a reasoned argument. How did they get here? That is so valuable because, first of all, it makes my argument stronger. So if I say, okay, here's the data points that you went to come to your opinion, these are good data. Here's how I got to the point of being a different opinion. You also prepare people. So if people are inclined to believe you, they say, what's the other side? Well, this is what the other side says. And this is what they believe. And here's why they believe it. And here's why I disagree. When they go to someone on the other side of this, and I've seen this, I do a lot in healthcare reform with our partner organizations. And I do this a lot. Well, here's what the other folks are saying. Here's why they believe this regulation is important. And here's why we disagree. So then when someone goes to that other side, they're like, well, this is why this regulation is important. And they go, yeah, I heard that. Here's why I don't buy it. So that steel manning of arguments is so important. It also, from an internal perspective, if you're willing to look at the arguments you disagree with, look at them with an open mind, then you're showing a strength that a lot of people aren't willing to have these days. You're willing to truly listen to what people who disagree with you are saying. You're willing to process it, you're willing to internalize it, and you're willing to take the risk where your opinion might change.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to take that risk and you still stand on where you believe, that's great. But yeah, that's exactly it. People are willing to be educated by you. Now that they have this trust, they're willing to hear these alternative ideas. They're willing to hear the opinions that you came through. They're willing to take those facts in and review them. And now, if they trust you, if they have that relationship with you, when you say, here is what I came to with this information, they're not bristling back and they're immediately going, got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And the last thing on educating,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing that we say consistently all across the organization, it starts with being better storytellers
Yeah.
and sharing your story. And I know that that's one thing that we're going to talk about in the future, but I believe that, at the end of the day, the best way to educate someone that you maybe have a little bit of trust with or a light relationship is by sharing a story. Because that's going to connect the emotion, that's going to connect the value, that's going to do everything that I just did, everything that I just talked about, wrap it up in a nice package. And, if we want to connect to people, we have to be better at sharing our stories and our beliefs and our values in a way that is going to get people emotionally engaged, because people they buy on emotion and they justify with logic. And
Yes.
that's the best way that you can get someone, is if you can get someone emotionally invested and educate them through that, then you are going to make a huge difference, not only in your community but in your state and all across the country.
Right. And there's that motivation, right? So people are, that we've built the relationship. Then you have that trust that grows. Now people are educated. And now when people are educated on a topic, now we're ready to go make change. And they're making a real change. So also by going through these steps, people have this true deep motivation. It's not, all right, I'm going to spend an hour doing what Adam asks. Adam is my friend. I'm just going to kind of half heartedly stand there and do what he asks. I'm going to hold my sign. I'm going to hold it a little low and stand in the back versus, okay, I believe in this. I am here with Adam. I believe in his cause. I am with him. I will do whatever it takes to see this succeed. I'm here for the long haul. So now we're truly motivated into making that change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was this one. This was fun. This is something that we've been teaching about for years, but we've never really put out there into the world. So we have a lot more. There's things that we do like this. We have, I think, the 5-10-20 rule.
Hmm.
We have cues that we added into this. One of the things that we added in was simply talking about cues and how we
Yep.
build that. So we've got a lot more. Adam, let's reconvene next week. We'll talk about this again. What do you think?
All right. Sounds good. We will
All
see you
right.
all next week. Same time, same place.
Thank you.